Welcome to the Wise and Happy Life podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, and mindfulness, philosophy, and happiness practices blend with neuroscience, compassion, and common sense. Hosted by Bob Martin, meditation mentor, happiness coach, trial lawyer, and entrepreneur. This podcast explores how to live with grace, presence, and purpose in a complex world.
Hey everybody, welcome to another wonderful episode of a Wise and Happy Life podcast. And I always like to start off with a little story that gives you an introduction to our terrific guest today. And I want to tell you that when I was younger, I used to read a lot of science fiction. One of my favorite authors was a fellow named Isaac Asimov, who was very prolific. He wrote so many novels and so many short stories that people always asked him, where do you get all those crazy ideas? And so he sat down and he wrote an essay explaining where he got all those crazy ideas. And he said, well, the first thing, you have to have a mind that's curious, and you have to have a mind that just wants to acquire little bits of information, even if they don't seem like they have any particular relevance to your life right now. Just the love of acquiring information and bits of knowledge. Then, and this is where the talent comes in, he said, you have to have the kind of mind that puts those bits of information together, perhaps sometimes in intentional ways and sometimes in random ways, and has that ability to say, that's a cool connection, and then a story can flow out of that. So that's where he got all those crazy ideas. So I tell you this story because our guest today is Madelaine Weiss, who's a Harvard-trained psychotherapist. But more than that, she's another person who has this wonderful hunger for just learning. She calls it epistemic hunger. The idea of wanting just to acquire learning for its own sake and then see what the consequences are in the way that it broadens our horizons. Now, I am really honored and excited to have Madelaine on the show today. We're going to talk about knowledge and acquiring knowledge. I'll talk about curiosity. Most importantly, one of the things that I want to get into is there's something that's very special about her. She's one of the very few people that tested to have a good balance between her intuitive and her verbal intelligence sides. I really want to talk about intuitive intelligence and how we can use that to make our lives more full. So without anything further, Madelaine, say hello.
Hello.
And did I miss anything? Is there?
No,
you've got a load of certifications, and we can go into all that. But
I'm sort of having an out-of-body experience, thinking, "Wow, I'm really glad I'm listening to this podcast. This is going to be so much fun." And then I realized, wait, it's me. So most interviewers don't zoom in on that piece of me. And there's something about the way you brought that to life that really touches me and excites me at the idea of discussing that with you. And I hope for some benefit to all of your listeners. So thank you.
Well, it's such a big piece because this rational, need a reason, logical life that we live, it continues to strengthen, the why and having a reason for everything. And it kind of like doesn't pay so much attention to that hunch, that intuitive side of us. And it's like we're using half our brain. And what would it be like to use the whole brain? But maybe you can.
I don't think we're using even half.
Not even half.
Not even. I had a friend for many years when we were raising our children together, and she had a song for everything. So like no matter what you were talking about, she had a song for it. And I noticed myself, especially, but not exclusively, in my work with my clients, I have like a piece of science for everything. So they'll be talking about whatever. And I say, yeah, I was reading recently that blah, 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 and which gives some credence to whatever idea it is that we're creating together that might be of some use to them. And having it science backed seems to be useful and helpful to a lot of people. I remember myself when I was studying, believe it or not, Advaita Vedanta, pre-Hindu tradition. I was doing a little Buddhism, and then I fell in love with Advaita Vedanta, and I was going to classes every week. And
let me just say that Aveda Ayurvedic thinking has to do with the traditional Hindu system of health.
It's pre-Hindu, and it means not to. So so it's non-dual, and the idea is that we are all part of a whole. So they would get kind of like a little woo-woo for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to them, because I'm kind of transparent, I would say to them, I just need you to know I'm not exactly there with you yet. And they like pat me on the head. That's okay. And then I'd bring in the science. And so they would say something and I would give them the science, and they would always say to me, oh, well, we're glad to hear that the science is catching up with us, because they've been espousing this stuff. Well, not they, but these concepts, these ideas, philosophies have been espoused for what, thousands of years?
Thousands of years, yeah.
Right.
And you're right.
And now the science affirms it.
Yeah.
But some of us need that. Some of
Mhm.
us need that little bit of science to make it so. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, brain science is confirming so much. I once heard that the difference between the physicists, those people who look at the physical science, and the metaphysicists, like the metaphysicists, they're the people that look at the internal science, what we can learn by looking within. And the physicists look without, but now they're kind of coming full circle and joining and saying it's all the same stuff.
Yep. Well, they say that the physicists, as they mature, are more likely to believe in a higher power than not, because they see the patterns in the world that are hard to explain without that. So there, in fact, once when I was living in Boston, I attended a talk between, was it Francis Collins and Richard Dawkins? Richard Dawkins was an atheist, and Francis Collins, I think, was the DNA guy, or don't quote me on that, but I think, and they were discussing that. And I was finding Richard Dawkins, the atheist, was more dogmatic in his way of being than even Francis Collins was, who was supposed to have been the believer in God, but was much more open-minded. So,
well, it's said that when Einstein spoke about his theories and the theories of a closed universe, that gravity being infinite, and space being curved, it makes just one big circle. If you go far enough out in one direction long enough, you come back to where you started. Those kinds of crazy concepts. And somebody asked him, well, if this is a closed universe, then what's outside it? And his response was God.
Yeah, wow. So, whatever that means.
Whatever that may mean.
Yeah. Showstopper.
Yeah, so many people think that religion and science are mutually exclusive, but they're not.
No, they do. When I was trying to decide whether to go Buddhism route or Advaita Vedanta route, because I was exposed to each of them, I realized all this stuff, ultimately, it seems to me anyway, go to the same place. And it's just how you want to travel. And when I went into just like a friend introduced me to Advaita Vedanta, and I was thinking, I don't know. I'm not there. But I walked into their building. It was this beautiful antique home, and there were flowers everywhere and beautiful artwork. And on the table, there were like cheese and nuts and fruits, and there was all this abundance. And you know that Buddhism is not like that, it's much more sparse. And the idea that in Buddhism, if I have this right, it's more like the self is nothing. And it's when you understand and embrace the nothingness, you arrive. And in Advaita Vedanta, it's the self is everything. Like everything is everywhere and in all of us. So it's all about abundance, not scarcity. And I thought, yeah, I think I'll go with the pretty stuff. So, and there were lots of just really sort of egghead, intelligent people involved in that I really enjoyed debating with and learning from. Yeah.
Mhm. But I think, as you mentioned, it's all different routes, to the same thing. Because even in
Yes.
Buddhism, the idea of reducing the self is not reducing the authentic self, but reducing the ego kind of
Yeah.
perceived, culturalized, formed self. And once we can break through with that concept of who we are that the world gave us, we begin to realize that we're all much more alike than we are different. And I think Alan Watts said something like, and I'm going to be totally off, he said, if you're really involved in wanting to find out about nobody, then you really have to concentrate on your somebody, because once you can firmly decide who your somebody is, then you can start working towards being nobody. But then you will only be nobody. You'll be a somebody in your nobodiness, if that makes any sense, he said.
No, it doesn't. What does it mean by somebody?
Huh?
What
Somebody
does,
would be your persona, your idea of who you are, and
uh-huh.
nobody would be your feeling of connection with everything else, being a part of it all.
Okay.
You know,
That's
and,
that's
and
good.
that's something that I think we all have glimpses of when we feel awe. When you lose yourself in a sunset, when you walk into a cathedral and you're just, struck by the beauty of the stained glass, and you just forget yourself for a moment. You're just part of where you're at. We get these little glimpses, little tastes of it,
The
and
quieter
hmm?
the quieter we are inside, however we get there,
Mm-hmm,
the more we are able to receive and enjoy those glimpses.
mm-hmm, yes.
So that's a big part of what I try to do with people is to quiet it down. And people are looking so much for their answers and their pleasure and their everything from the outside.
Mm-hmm,
What they don't know, because it's so noisy inside, is how much of that lives inside and is readily available if you're quiet enough to hear it.
mm-hmm.
However you get to your quiet, and there are many,
However you
many,
get
many
there.
ways to get
Mm-hmm.
to your quiet, through prayer, through a couple of things that I've mentioned. Some people get it through physical exertion. However we get to quiet down the radioactivity in there. There's
Yeah.
so much in there for us.
And it's funny. I think people want to go, like, they want to walk into the gym and pick up the 50-pound weight right away. Like, like you say, we want to create some quiet inside, and then all of a sudden that means like I have to be totally silent inside and uh, have like white noise in my head. But that's not something that really happens ever. But it starts with. I think it starts with you experience a little bit of beauty and awe, and if you can allow that in, just allow it in a little bit, it makes a little space. And
Nice.
in that space, you can put a little bit more, and that makes a little more space.
You sound like Viktor Frankl. You know how he talks about creating that space?
The space, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a responsibility to beauty and awe to intentionally take the time to put those things intentionally in our life because they stimulate that intuitive side of our brain, which you have a whole lot of good experience with. So let's talk about intuition and that. What how do we develop a confidence and a faith in our hunches?
By practicing them. I want to say though, you added something that I really appreciated to my own way of thinking about things. That my idea was first we quiet, then we experience the beauty and the awe. And you're suggesting, which I think is really important, and I appreciate it. Thank you. You're suggesting that we tend to the beauty and the awe, and that brings the quiet or makes the space. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I got sidetracked by that. What was the question?
The question was about intuition, and it
Uh-huh.
was how do we learn? Now, not all of our hunches. Some of our hunches can come about because we put in bad data, and our intuitive mind's working with bad data, and so we have hunches that may not be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, it's pretty accurate. And so, how do we develop an accurate, intuitive intelligence? I guess. Wow, I know that's a.
Well, so I teach decision making. I have an acronym called like FLASH, F.L.A.S.H.
Okay.
But and we can go through that if you want to. But the idea, I think, is that you have to, like I said, practice it. You have to have a hunch, try it out, and see how it worked. What most people that I work with are concerned that there's a right answer out there and they have to find it, and that they need more and more information. Like, so it's perfect information, and there ain't no such thing as that. And I can tell you why that is so about the brain. But so the F is for faster.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Take us through Flash.
Okay, so faster in that people have an idea typically that the harder a decision is, the more time they should take making it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah. I would. That seems like it feels right.
yeah, wrong.
Wrong.
Because,
Okay.
because the reason that the decision is hard is because there's approximately equal pluses and minuses on both sides of. So there's something called Borodon's ass. So it's a picture I have like in my PowerPoint presentation, picture of a donkey. And the donkey's looking, I've seen it with a pail of water and a bale of hay, or I've seen it with two identical bales of hay. And the donkey is trying to decide which one to pick, and the donkey dies of hunger or thirst, whichever the
Right.
picture depicts, trying to decide which is the right way to go. And human beings do that all the time. And in fact, there are studies, like I said, I got a study for everything. There are studies that the most successful CEOs do not do that. And so the idea would be the reason that a decision might be so hard is because there's merit or threat equal-ish on either side, which is why we can't decide. In other words, if one option was so much better than another, we'd just pick that one,
Yeah.
obviously,
Right. Sure.
right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because this side and this side. So the idea would be to pick one and then throw everything we've got at it to make it work. There's this saying but I didn't know if I made it up or borrowed it from somebody. So I asked ChatGPT, who said that it couldn't find it anywhere. The saying is, it's not the decisions we make, but what we make of those decisions once we have made them that makes or breaks our life. There's another study that showed that 66% of participants wouldn't follow a leader who appeared to hesitate. So the L, F.L.A.S.H, the L was for leadership, that if you're wanting to help people move from here to there in a particular way, you can't be wobbling and waffling all over the place. So,
right. Okay, so F.L.A.S.H, I mean, F is for faster. So decisions should be made quickly, not extended. And also, if you hesitate, your followers begin to suspect your leadership ability.
right. And with the faster, when people are going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back, they're depleting their brains, they're exhausting themselves. So that by the time they make the decision, it's not necessarily as good as the decision if they had made it in a better fit brain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that reason also, not to be going back and forth and back and forth and back.
Right. You're exhausting yourself.
Right.
Right.
So the senses send 11 million bits of information to the brain every second. Out of that, the brain processes 50 bits of that information. And that is out of what is supposed to be a total of 6 times 70 million zeros bits of information in the inner universe. So that's 50 bits out of 6 times 7. So I always like to say, anybody who thinks they know anything is sorely mistaken. So that's another reason not to be sitting there waiting to know everything there is to know. It's not going to happen ever. So let
me just recap. A decision that's easy to make, well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about decisions that present equal amounts of pros and cons and are difficult to make. And if we spend an inordinate amount of time going back and forth and considering the pros and cons as if we thought there was some correct answer, we are mistaken. We need to go ahead and make that decision, and then make whatever we make out of the decision. It's once we make the decision, then we know where we're going, and it's what we make out of the decision that really counts.
That's what I think.
My decisiveness also promotes my ability, my sense of leadership among. So that's the F and the L. What's the A?
So your question, I want to remind us, is about intuition.
Right.
So all this overthinking that people do, trying to get perfect information in a way that's impossible anyway, really buries the intuition the inner intelligence that could help guide us so much. All right. So the A is, if you don't want people to be observing you as waffling and wobbling and all of that, you need to take action. So it's an actor. And it's not any old action. It's smarter action. So have you ever seen Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain? So this is the brain, and this is the amygdala, and this is the higher brain centers. So this took in something from the external environment and got a little freaked out by whatever it was, good or bad. I've seen people get like way overexcited because somebody flattered them into a really bad investment because the higher brain was not online. So on my website, MadelaineWeiss.com, there's a tab that's power breathing. It's a 30-second mindset reset. that puts the higher brain, this is the higher brain, back online. So this says to the higher brain, something's going on here. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. And this says, thank you for sharing. I'll take it from here. So you have your higher cortex making the decisions with respect to the feedback that it got from the part that took in the information, let's say, from the outer world.
Oh,
So
I'm not sure if I followed all that.
ask me a question.
I'm not sure I followed all that. So
You don't
explain
want
the
this
conflict.
part, you don't want this hysterical part of ourselves driving the bus, making
Right.
decisions about our lives. But I could tell you this, we don't ignore the emotions. I got more studies for you on the emotions. There are studies on people who've had temporal lobe brain injuries, so that this part and this part are not connected. So
Mm-hmm,
this part is not feeding information to this part. So there's a story about a doctor who couldn't get dressed in the morning because he laid out all his pants and he didn't know how he like had no preference. He didn't know how he felt about these pants or those pants. So he just stood there like looking at them because like he had no information to help guide him to which pair of pants. And they did another study, simulation on financial decisions, where the participants who had this particular kind of injury that separated the parts of the brain put themselves into bankruptcy because they couldn't feel like bankruptcy wouldn't feel that good. So there are all these studies that show that decision making is very much impaired when it's not, connected to our emotions. But emotions are data, they're not directives. So
mm-hmm.
they relay information to our higher brain, which we're hoping if we move a little faster is in good shape to make decisions and not exhausted. And the higher brain, now that they're through this breathing exercise on my website, the 30-second mindset reset puts these back together, like puts Humpty Dumpty back together
There you go.
again.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So
So, basically what you're saying is that the emotions have to supplement uh, our higher brain functioning decision-making process because the data that they contain is valuable data
they have to be taken into account.
into
They
account.
just, they just can't drive the bus.
Right. They can't drive the bus because then, we look at people that are highly dysfunctional, very, like some of our political leaders today, who are making decisions based on what they want. I like gold, so I'm going to paint a gold leaf all over my office
Hmm.
because I want to. And even if that's not what's most helpful and the like, that is information that's driving the bus, not particularly helpful. So how do we know the difference?
Well, okay, that's a question that comes up, and I will address that. I would also like to say, separate from that individual, sometimes there are things that will, how they say, like on the airplane, you have to put the oxygen on your own
Mm-hmm.
face first before you. So
Right.
I'm a big fan of self care, and that's different for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
some of your listeners might have some crazy little thing that does it for them, and let's say isn't hurting anyone else, that they may do to steady themselves
Mm-hmm.
for the day, for
Mm-hmm.
their life. How do you know if it's good thing or bad thing? Is when we know where we're headed, and we were talking about that earlier, whatever's in alignment with that. Whatever the North Star is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever is aligned with that is a good thing to keep. It's a good decision to make.
You have to know where you're going, beginning with the end in mind. One of the
Yeah.
7 habits of effective people,
Yeah.
Stephen Covey's, one of my favorite of those. Beginning with the end in mind. You have to know where you're going.
Yeah. And, you have an end, and then how did somebody say this? Each intervention is based on the outcome of the one preceding it. So when you say the end in mind, that end is not the be all and end all in time. I mean, so we bob and weave a little bit. We tried this and we
Mm-hmm.
learned something from that, and maybe we want to revise that, but we're moving forward
Mm-hmm.
in a general direction about who we want to be and what we want to bring and do during our time here on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got faster, we got leadership, we got action,
We got smarter,
we
and
got smarter.
the smarter was the higher
High
brain,
brain. Uh-huh.
and that's the H. The H is your higher brain, putting
Your higher brain.
your higher brain in charge. And again, go to my website. It's 30-second, and you can just download it. And it's how that works is, I hope this isn't TMI. It stimulates the polyvagal nerve, which runs from the abdomen all the way up to the brain, and calms the system. So when we say reducing the noise, it actually reconnects the higher brain and lower brain centers in a way that's really clearing and calming. And I'm emphasizing clearing because people worry that they'll get so chill that they won't be smart. And I'm saying, yes, you will. You'll be clearer, better able to focus, more energetic, because the noise is removed when you put yourself
Yeah.
back together again.
Yeah.
And that takes only 30 seconds. You
Yeah,
could
no,
do it anywhere, anytime, for any reason. And it's free.
I mean, if you wanted to break it down into something that was really simplistic, you would say you just got to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, you could do that.
I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes. Let me just tell you that when I was studying under Master Watching Me, we Grandmaster, 72nd generation Grandmaster at the Shaolin Temple. We asked him once, why do they call you master? And he giggled. He always giggled a lot. He said, because I mastered life. And we said, oh, come on. What does that mean? And he said, very seriously, he said, when you can interfere with the natural flow of things the least and expend the least amount of energy to obtain the desired results, you have begun to master life. And I think that, kind of in closing, I think that we might want to just say that this idea of incorporating a certain trust in yourself, in allowing your intuitive mind to incorporate into your decision making, so that when you find yourself in this situation where you have a difficult decision to make, trust yourself and make the decision, and then make the most of it and move forward, be a leader, take action, and allow yourself to become smarter and use your higher intelligence, F.L.A.S.H. It just gives you a certain confidence. Go ahead and break through that idea that I have to struggle with this and just make a damn decision.
I want to add a word.
Yeah.
That was great. That was great. And I want to add a word. Self-respect.
Oh, yeah.
We're all wanting, like, the world. Everybody wants the world to, like, respect their thoughts and their ideas and who they are in the world and what they're trying to do. Give that to yourself first.
Ooh, can I put a little tweak on that?
Yeah.
Self-efficacy.
Okay.
The sense of I can do this,
And to respect that.
and to respect that.
I want to
You
say
know,
respect. I want people to respect themselves a little
yeah,
better than
this,
we do sometimes.
yeah. We're pretty amazing creatures, you know.
I'll say, yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty amazing. When I ask my students, to consider thinking about the intention that they sit for 10 minutes or stand for 10 minutes when they meditate, I say, so if you can start with an intention of how you're going to approach what is your intention for your time, just consider the fact that you're a human being and there's something that's very dignified about that, and that you're taking 10 minutes to give a gift to this very amazing creature that you are.
Nice.
Hmm.
Lovely.
Madelaine, give us your website again.
Okay. It's MadelaineWeiss.com.
We could go on and talk about things
I
forever,
know.
but they're
I
all
know.
on your website and it'll be in the show notes. And, she's got just an amazing wealth of stuff on her website that will help you incorporate, the intuitive part of your brain, and think with more of a full and whole brain, and take it from somebody who is one of those rare folks. I'm going to say it again, one of those rare folks that tested out to be balanced between her
I did.
intuitive and her rational mind. It's not like we all are, and we can learn a lot from her. Madelaine, thank you so much
Oh,
for
you're
sharing your
welcome.
time and
And
your
I
wisdom.
I want people to know that there's a button on my website that they can click if they would like to have a free strategy session. So,
Oh, that's great. That's
yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful. You won't come, if you don't come out of it with anything, you will come out feeling a little bit better about yourself. I get a
that
nod of the head for that, right?
that's the idea.
Yeah, I love it. Thank
Because
you. Yeah, go
because
ahead.
I feel like the more respect we have for ourselves, the better our gifts are to the world.
And the
So,
more willing we are to trust our decisions,
yeah.
knowing that, even if we make a decision that doesn't work out so well, it's not like the
Yeah.
end of the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank
Bob.
you.
I
Great.
love
Take
talking
care.
to you. That was great.
Stay on. Stay on.